What's up, fellers? Welcome to part number 4 in the 64 Thunderbird Revival series. And you'll see here, if you saw the last video, the last place we were was unsticking our last stuck valve. And we've got all those thoroughly unstuck. And then I started rebuilding on the top end to roll it around a bunch of times and make sure our valves are going up and down nice, and then spin it on the starter and make sure the valves are keeping up. And then I discovered another problem, which isn't really that surprising, but you may notice I've got my roller assembly in and I'm missing a push rod. I have it, I just was able to take it back out after I bolted this all the way down because I noticed when I was dropping the push rods in that the one over here seemed to be a lot lower than the rest of them. So after I got it all back together on this side and I rolled it around a little bit, I quickly realized that that push rod wasn't lifting near as high as the other ones for some reason. So I went to the other side, got it all stuck back together and cleaned up and ready to go to see if I had any more collapsed lifters, and I did find another one over here. You'll never guess, all the stuck valves and collapsed lifters and bent push rods are all on the same guys. Definitely always pull your valve covers and lubricate everything before you try to revitalize. But anyway, so I found out when I stuck this side back together, I did have one more push rod that sat abnormally low. And it didn't take too long to figure out why. Over here on the bench, this is one of the lifters. How this guy works is he sits in here like that. That bottom part here, this rides on the lobe on the cam, and that looks really good too, so that's a really nice sign. She's not all worn out and beat around. But anyway, you've got this pushy assembly here. She rides down in there. This cup sits on top of it. That all goes down inside. And down in here, there's a lip for like a snap ring. So this assembly, that cup goes on, it squishes down, snap ring goes in. How that guy works, he moves up and down with the push rod, and that pumps oil through this lifter and into the spot here where the push rod rides. She sits in there and spins and pushes up and down. But yeah, when those guys was bent and we were running on it, it moved the push rod all up and down, in and out in different unnatural ways. And what that accomplished is it made that push rod be hitting that lifter at funny angles, and it caught that C-clip, either broke it or popped it out of place. Luckily, though, it seems to have only done that on this intake valve on number 5 here and the intake valve on number 1 over there. All the rest of them appear to have their clips be assembled and be moving up and down. And we got lucky even further, fellers. Did you notice that I had the lifter on the bench over there and the intake manifold and the cylinder heads are still in place? As it turns out, we have 1, 2, 3, 6 total lifter spots where we could not remove the lifter with the cylinder heads and intake manifold in place. But the two guys where they collapsed is here in the same spot on the other side. I was able to get down there. On this side with this roller rocker assembly out of the way. I only put that back in to watch all the valves move up and down. Well, the ones other than these two. But anyway, yeah, I was able to get in there with my magnet on a stick, and I could get the loose innards out of the lifter and remove those, and then I was able to grab the body of the lifter, move it up and down a whole bunch and get it worked out of the hole. And then if you pull this one intake manifold bolt right here, then there's plenty of room to slide that lifter all the way out and even drop a new one in. So yeah, that's really neat. All right. Now we've got our brand new replacement lifters and a little engine assembly lube. We're gonna coat the outside here where it slides up and down in the bore, and that bottom face where she mates up with the camshaft. So now we just got to come through, pull my 4 bolts out again, get my rocker assembly out of the way, and then very carefully use the magnet to insert the guy way down yonderward. Okay, now we've got both our new lifters in, just about all the old pieces of the lifters out, and everybody's reassembled. I've still got my 4 bent and then straightened push rods over here at this end. I've got those here because our 2 stuckest valves are right there and right there. So what we're about to do now that everything's reassembled and all my rocker arm rod bolts are torqued down to, I think I went to 42, it's 40 to 45. But now that those are all in and torqued down, I'm going to hook up the spark plug wires, and we're going to attempt to run this for a little bit with the valve covers off. I'm not sure exactly how oily of a mess that's gonna make, so if it's not too bad, we'll run it like that for a little bit. Main reason being, we want to get a few heat cycles through all of our valves moving up and down, and we want to really make sure we've got those 2 bad stuck ones good and work loose. So it would be really neat to run it the first time or two with the valve covers off, so we can visually inspect everybody's opening and closing all the way. The valve spring isn't returning too slow, like she's not breaking contact with the rocker arm. It'd just be neat to get our peepers on that. Okay, we are all wired up. I fixed my 1 spark plug wire that had come apart before. And we've got our starty switch hooked up. So now we'll hook up the battery, turn the key on, and hopefully we have far less rattly clanks. Well, that was significantly better. Still heard a little tappy tap, but that's probably my 2 lifters not pumped up yet. Oh my goodness, boys! Oh shoot, we need to open the door. Okay. Great. Well, that sounded pretty good. That was a really, really nice step in the right direction. So now that we ran it just a little bit, our lifters are pumped up, things sound better, and it idles smooth. Oh, it idles smooth. It's never idled smooth, probably because it's been down one cylinder the whole time. Anyway, now that we've ran it a little bit, I soaked all my valves and valve springs, the valve stem and the valve springs down, in the PB blaster again, and then we'll start it up again, let it idle for a little bit, not too long, ain't got no cooling system, you know what I mean? But we'll let it run for a little bit again, let the valve stems and whatnot get nice and warm, and soak that PB blaster in, and then we'll shut it off and let it bake into it. And then we'll get back to bleeding on our brakes, and then we'll set the old rig on the ground and roll it. Then we'll move that car and roll it out and flush on that cooling system. Ooh, fellers, I can't wait. Alright. Oh yeah, I also fixed this. You lift up on the guy and that's pretty neat. Okay, so now hopefully she'll just fire right off and be happy, and we'll keep a close eye on the oil pressure. She's looking a little on the low side, or that's a really slow gauge. Not sure, but it sounds really nice under the hood. Not getting a bunch of clicky clatter. It's coming up. Yeah, but we are not going to run it real long on the oil that's in it. Alright, now moving on with our brake bleeding. Figure I might throw some of this info at you. The bleeder screw on the front brakes is incredibly hard to get to, but you can get on it with the 5/16, I believe it is, wrench, but it's just in a tight spot and it's a super pain. So really helpful piece of advice: if you're working on a car that has front brakes like this one, you know, the same setup with the bleeder screw in the way of the guy, after you install the new wheel cylinder, before you mount your whole apparatus back to the guy, break the wheel cylinder loose and then, you know, snug it back slightly with a little wrench. Otherwise, you might have to do what I did on this side. I had to pull the drum back off, take the wheel bearing back out, take the 4 bolts loose, slide the guide back off, and then boop, break the thing loose. Then I can put it all back on and turn it with a wrench. Luckily, on the other side, I was able to get that bleeder screw loose without disassembling everything. But yeah, helpful tip. We were able to bleed the front brakes nice and easy, but we've had just a heck of a time getting fluid going to the back of the car. It was easy to flush the lines with the air compressor, but I have just discovered the most wonderful device right behind Bagel. What are you eating? Yeah, anyway, right behind Bagel, I got this really neat little brake bleeder type tool. I think, yeah, I got it from the O'Reilly's. It's like 20 bucks or 25 or something. Yeah, that's what it is. W87032. But, alright. Update on the brakes. On the bright side, we do have brakes on the front. On the rear, though, however, I have determined that this third soft line, the one that we couldn't source before, yeah, she's plugged up solid. I can get fluid to the top side of it, bleed all the air out to there, but she's plugged up good. And I got it loose at this end, and it flows down here. The block's not clogged. That line is collapsed in the center, and she won't allow fluid movement one way or the other. So that sucks. Ah. So anyway, I can go ahead and put the wheels back on it and set her down. So at least we can drive out of the shop and do the coolant flush, but I gotta find that rear line or figure out a way to make a hydraulic line that'll coordinate with our 3 fittings each way, and then we'll have rear brakes. Alright, here we are, back on the ground for the first time in quite a while. We've got our new rear brake hose ordered and on the way, but for now, I got her back on the ground, all the new tires onto it, and I popped the valve covers back on for now, stuck the air cleaner to it. That took some modification to make it fit. Still doesn't quite fit right. Also, I gotta trim the stick. But anyhow, it's about time for cold to start, pull it out into the yard and flush all the atrocities out of the cooling system. Alright, now I can finally clean up my mess I've been sweeping under the car. Dang it. Alright, that was messy. So I just took the hose here and ran lots of gallons of water from the top out the bottom, washed out a bunch of nasty orange rusty looking mess, and then I went the other way with it from the bottom, pushed everything back out the top, back and forth. Now when you push water through it, it comes out nice and clean. So that's bound to make life better on our brand new radiator. Got the Thunderbird back in the shop, and we just washed up the next car we're gonna be working on. But fellers, check out the raditator we got for this thing. Yeah. None of that garbage, plastic side cap, leaky point, cracked up mess here. We had to go with a really good solid aluminum all welded together radiator after we took the original copper core something or another guy out. You can't take a good metal radiator out and put one of the pieces of junk in with the plastic end caps. You just don't do that. Ooh, look at the fitment onto it. Let's hook it all up. Yep, but I'm really happy so far with the results from cleaning all the sludge out of the top end of the motor. Because if y'all remember from a update or two ago, she used to smoke a lot. And now it doesn't, like, at all. So I guess our issue was all the sludge in the top end was making the oil run all up onto the valve guide seals. And now that that gunk's cleared out, she runs and idles smooth, and we're not even mosquito spraying the neighborhood. Yeah, guys. Alright, boys. This is a very exciting moment right now. Exciting for Buddy too. You hear him? I've got my rear brake appendage in the mail, so that's exciting. We'll be putting that in soon. But right this second, we got brand new tires mounted on this guy, and I've had them on it for a week or so now. And I gotta air the tires up every day because they're brand new seated tires and they haven't been rode on. So today, being as we have a cooling system and we've got front brakes and we've got good oil pressure and she's running smooth, we're gonna run it around the block like a whole bunch of times, keeping an eye on how things are doing, checking for leaks in all our new gasket mated surfaces. But that would be awesome to get our new tires seated so I ain't got to keep airing them up every day. Because you sure don't want to let your brand new tires go flat and squish on them with the pinch on the wheel. That's no good. So at least we haven't had them go flat all the way yet. But yeah, let's drive it around. Alright, back on the ground with air on the tires. Come on, cold start. Oh, one tip real quick. I learned from a knowledgeable Thunderbird feller in my comments on the other videos. If you're working on a car similar to this one and she's got the slidey slide steering wheel, it's a really good idea to always have it slid to the right while you're doing like me, working on it under the hood with it running in park a whole bunch. Because apparently the slide mechanism causes a lot of extra stress on the lockout. Causes a lot of extra stress on the lockout that holds it in park when you click it into park. So if you have her slid over to the left in the driving position, it's very possible for her to sit there, be idling and shake around just enough to fall into reverse, and then you're under the hood tuning on your things and she just takes off on you. But yeah, I really appreciate that tip because I sure couldn't afford for that to happen. Anyway, cold start. Where's the keys? Smooth. Now, that was not a bad first real test drive. We haven't ever drove it very far, but I ran around the block a whole bunch of different times. It would appear that I have an operational cooling system and charging system. The power steering is nice and smooth. We even got front brakes. Here in a little bit we're gonna have some rear brakes, but right now I think it might be about time to go ahead and wash it off again. Really, we're just getting some dust off, but also, yeah, ain't never had nothing nice in the yard ever before, and the birds find it real quick. I got it all washed up, and I finished on my rubbing compound job. Only made it to like behind the driver's door on that side and across the door on that side. Didn't do the whole front end yet. But yeah, check it out now. She's got the shiny fellers on her. It's down really low too, but the chromage is chroming. I hear that don't get you home though, but it's a good thing we're already here. Update on the brakes. We have, let me get you all up in there. Yep, you can kind of see it. We have a new line, and she's installed. That took a long time. Yep, that was not a good time getting that guy in there, but he's in there now. There's the old feller. That thing really turns your hands nasty. And I just bled the air out of the rear brakes on both sides, and our brake pedal stops like halfway down-ish instead of way down at the floor. So that's pretty wonderful. Before, when I had front brakes, we had brakes, but the pedal was like really low near the floor, probably because of air trapped in the line back here. And yeah, now the pedal sits a lot higher. Now it feels like we might actually have breakage. Ooh, that's been a long time coming, I want you to know. Simple, easy process. We just had to replace nearly the entire braking system, and then she's got brakes. Now, the next thing I'll get into quick is popping some valve covers back off, double checking our whole situation. If all our push rods still look straight and we don't seem to be having an issue with the valves getting sticky, we'll throw the 4 new push rods in and get the bent and straightened back out ones out. Got our valve cover pulled back off and our little roller assembly lifted back out. And my 4 push rods here at the front that I straightened out aren't any more bent than they were when I put them in. So that's a good sign. And those 2 sticky, really bad stuck intake valves here and there, they're still moving nice and freely, so I just hit them with a little more brake clean, and we'll put our new push rods in and reassemble it for the last time, hopefully, maybe. And then we should hopefully be clear of the valves getting more stuff broke loose and gumming up and getting stuck again later. Although, you know, the best thing to do would have been pull the whole intake off, take the cylinder heads off, disassemble each and every valve, and clean them all disassembled. However, my buddy's put a lot of time and a lot of money into this car, and it's really about time to get it back on the road. He's had it for quite some time and never driven it yet. So, as opposed to us putting another week or 2 into tearing it down and another couple $100 in gaskets and whatnot, we're opting to just, you know, work the 2 guys loose. Everybody else hasn't had a sticking issue. And so far, as much as I've run it, they haven't stuck up again. So hopefully we're going to be in the clear here. And we just got to keep an eye on the cladders. After the next oil change or 2, if we continue to not get any valve train clatterage, you'll get if the valve is lifting too slowly, you'll get a clattery noise, like the rocker arm breaking contact with the valve stem. So as long as by our next oil change we get no clatters, we're going to be in the clear in the valve department. All right. Now again, we've got all our mounting bolts torqued down to 42 foot-pounds. And I don't think I told you the last time I put this together, but pay attention to your bolts upon reassembly. The bolt for the oil passage hole, which is the second one back from the front on both sides, it has a different looking bolt. It has a little skinnier diameter in the center to allow better oil flow, and it's slightly longer, like a 1/4 inch or so, than the other 3. So if you do try to put that in the wrong hole, it's going to run down and just stop. And if you get like all impatient with it and try to just tighten her down, you're going to break on something. If you're lucky, you'll just snap a bolt off. If you're unlucky, you'll break the casting that we're bolting into. But yeah, that's probably a good thing to tell you about. Anyway, now we're all back together. Got my 4 new push rods in. Bound to improve performance slightly, because there's no way I bent the other ones perfectly straight. And when I put the new push rods in, I took a little bit of my engine assembly lube here and smeared it around both of the ball ends on the guy. So when we fire it up here in a little bit, she's not waiting on oil to get there to lubricate it. It's not starting dry. And yeah, now I can put my new valve cover gasket on the valve cover and put the valve cover back on again. Okay, now we got our new gaskets in place, and our valve cover bolts are torqued down to 5 to 7 foot-pounds, and all the wires are loomed through the Loomby finger guys. Yeah, so now we'll trip over the dogs, and now we can put the back tires back on it, air them all up again, and set it down and try running around the block a little bit again. I don't know if I'm leaking air around the seat. I'm pretty sure from when I was washing the car yesterday, we're getting a lot of air around the valve stems. So my buddy might end up having to take, if not all 4, at least these front 2, because they go flat overnight. But yeah, my buddy might end up having to take these tires back to the tire shop and get different valve stems put in. Those may be the wrong fellers. Well, that about brings me to a good stopping point here on the 4th edition of the 64 Thunderbird Revivalations. And hey Bagel, in the 5th video, we should possibly be wrapping this project up and getting my buddy back into his car, but that video will entail what we got left is detailing out the interior, and now that we have good running motor, oil pressure, brakes, cooling system, charging system, power steering pump, and the air bled out of all those things. Now that we're to that point, we get to clean the interior and figure out little electrical issues. The main one being, I noticed that she ain't got no brake lights. We got headlights. I got headlights, and I got running lights, and I got 1 reverse light, but we ain't got no brake lights, and that's kind of important. Pretty sure that has to do with that electronic doodad on the master cylinder, but you know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, and have a wonderful day.